Coming up on this edition of Chris 6 Sunrise, early voting for the November election starts up today. We have what you need to know before you hit the polls.
And City Council is expected to vote on park improvements this week. We take a look at what park they're hoping to renovate.
The last time this courthouse had major renovations was back in the 80s. I'm Melissa Trevino in Live Oak County, telling you about the major upgrade coming to this courthouse.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday and welcome to Chris 6 Sunrise. You're waking up with the Hoffmans. I'm Michelle Hoffman.
And I'm Brian Hoffman. Hope you guys had a wait for it, fantastic weekend. You know we did. And let's make sure that our week ahead is looking pretty good. And the drive this morning with meteorologist Stephen Jones. Hey, how you doing, Stephen?
Good morning.
Well, good morning, Michelle and Brian. Pretty good this morning. You know, it was a good weekend. What about y'all?
Not too shabby.
It was great.
Yeah, restful.
No, absolutely. But it went by just a little bit too quick, as they always do, you know. But as we're starting off our week, looking pretty good on those roadways so far. Getting a more in-depth look out there, of course, looking good and green mostly. But let's take a look here at the Harbor Bridge to and from Portland as we're heading out the door this morning at the 6 a.m. hour. Good and green looking there. Of course, closer to Corpus Christi, Ocean Drive, nice and green right now, as well as Ennis Jocelyn, SPID and Crosstown Expressway, as well as Saratoga down there. Wherever you're heading, looking good and green here in Corpus Christi. A little bit closer to the island now. Flower Bluff Drive, no major slowdowns to report as of now. There on Waldron Road, looks like we're starting to see just a minor slowdown there to keep in mind. Of course, the normal one you see also near the Naval Air Station, getting close to that gate in the causeway, not looking too bad as you're heading over to the island. So I want to get a good look at some of those drive times as well. Maybe we'll see a little bit more traffic in the back half of the hour, but right now sitting at 21 minutes from downtown to the island, 8 minutes there from Portland to downtown. Cal Allen to downtown sitting at about 15 minutes right now. So wherever you're coming from and wherever you're going to, good and green heading out the door this morning, but don't go anywhere. More news and weather heading your way.
Stephen, thank you for that. So early voting for the November 4th election starts up today, and 17 proposed amendments to the Texas Constitution are on the ballot. There's also some local races you might need to know about. Here's a look at Nueces County's Port Aransas residents. You're going to vote on a civic and community center that would be funded by an increase to the hotel occupancy tax. Aransas Pass ISD residents will also vote on a proposed tax increase. A mayoral and city council race is on the ballot for Robstown. Also on Nueces County ballot, 3 separate proposals that would annex new areas to emergency service districts 1, 3, and 4. You can stop on by Nueces County Courthouse to vote. Early voting will be open today through the 29th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Closed on October 26th and open on October 30th and 31st from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Early voting ends Friday, October 31st. Election Day, as always, Tuesday, November 4th.
Today marks day 20 of the federal government's shutdown with no end in sight. Senators headed home for a long weekend Thursday afternoon after a 10th failed vote, and Democrats say they are unwilling to pass even a short-term funding bill without extensions for Obamacare subsidies. Senate Republicans are reportedly considering a vote as soon as this week to pay federal workers affected by the shutdown. Republicans are also weighing a separate bill to ensure military members get paid. And we do have Scripps News Group Joe St. George. He'll join us at 6:12 with the latest.
Well, the Corpus Christi City Council will be looking at a resolution for park improvements this week, specifically Commodore Park. The resolution will be to award a construction contract to a company out of Quero, Texas. They're going to be overseeing phase 1 of the project. It includes improvements to a covered basketball court pavilion, tennis courts, pickleball courts, a fenced playground area, and new lighting. Total cost, well, that's more than $3.4 million. It'll be funded through a 2024 bond.
The City of Kingsville will have a special meeting this week to discuss a judge's decision to allow the recall election of 3 city commissioners. It will take place Wednesday at City Hall, and as we previously reported, the attorney representing the city and the 3 commissioners, Normaneta Alvarez, Leo Alarcon, and Hector Hinojosa, said the recall petition was not filed in time. According to the attorney, they have only 10 days to appeal the decision, and if the appeal is allowed, it means it will go to the Texas 13th District Court of Appeals.
In 1919, prohibition just became law, and that's the same year the Live Oak County Courthouse was built. Now, almost a century later, it's finally getting renovated. I'm Melissa Trevino, your neighborhood news reporter in George West, and I speak with the county judge on how this TLC won't cost you a dime. Back in the 1800s, when the county seat was moved from Oakville to George West, the courthouse was built using native stone and lumber. The land, according to the historical marker database, came from the town's founder, George West. The building has gone through a lot of changes over the years, both man-made and from Mother Nature. James Liska has seen renovations of the courthouse in the last few months. Judge Liska says money to cover the renovations, which started 3 years ago, came from the county's construction fund. The judge says the funds generated from money put aside by county leaders should help pay for the project, so they don't put a financial burden on taxpayers.
Well, as we're getting ready to start our Monday, looking out there at the USS Lexington camp, thanks to First Community Bank, you can see the Harbor Bridge out there, a little bit of low cloud cover, traffic flowing nice and smooth there. 75 degrees, winds out of the southeast 5 miles an hour, and not too bad, but the moisture has been on the rise. We had a brief relief yesterday on Sunday, but since then we're getting that return flow, southeasterly flow from the Gulf, sitting us at 73 degrees for that dew point from Ingleside, Port Aransas, down to the Naval Air Station as well, a little bit more inland. You get slightly drier air, 69 degrees for the dew point, and now it's 67 there in Beeville, but all of us going to be on the rise throughout our Monday, and looking at it, not too bad of a day to take the pup for a walk, at least this morning. Here we got Cool Whip ready, sitting on the couch with some spooky gear on, ready to hit the park, you should say, going for a good walk. How those temperatures are going to shape up: 80 degrees there by 9 a.m., 83 by 10. As we're heading towards the lunchtime hour, those mid to upper 80s could be expected, with winds also slightly increasing from about 5 miles an hour this morning to 10 to 15 by the time we're heading towards the lunchtime hour and into the early afternoon. So prepare for that, and maybe a little bit of warmth as well because of that moisture we just saw. Dew points in the 70s, daytime highs expected to go to the lower 90s, we should say, but that's going to make the feels like temperatures topping out in those upper 90s, potentially even topping out at that 100-degree mark for feeling like temperatures outside. So keep that in mind for some of the heat risk today. Of course, we get that nightly cool down back into the 80s as we go through the overnight hours. A good look at our current Doppler radar showing you a whole lot of nothing as we're heading through the 6 a.m. hour, but the future tracker does want to indicate just some very slight isolated activity for a little bit northeast of Corpus Christi towards Rockport, Seadrift, and getting towards that northeastern coastal bend area. Of course, through the rest of the day looking nice and dry here in Corpus Christi, but we do need the rain. We're about 10 inches shy of where we should be. By the time we're heading in through our Tuesday, could see another round on the way through the afternoon and into the evening, but overall not looking too strong at that as we're going through that. So gonna keep my eyes out for it, but overall rain chances sitting at isolated chances at best, potentially even scattered activity as we're heading into that Friday to Saturday time frame, because we're going to have the moisture in place and we get another disturbance on the way by that time. So hopefully that starts to make just at least a tiny dent in that 10-inch deficit that we have right now. The 7-day forecast showing you plenty of lower 90s, upper 80s, overnight lows in the 70s, and then yes, there's our better rain chance, about 20 to 30% as we're heading into Friday and Saturday.
Hey, it is day 20 of the government shutdown. Coming up on Sunrise Scripps News Group's Joe St. George is going to join us with more on this shutdown and how it's impacting courts. Welcome back, folks. 6:11 is your time on this Monday morning. Taking a live look from our LexCam. Looking great right now. Looking at the aquarium all lit up, and you can see the old and new Harbor Bridge right there in the background. Meteorologist Stephen Jones standing by. We'll look at our forecast, but first, we got some national headlines to get to.
A hunting stand with a direct line of sight to where President Trump exits Air Force One was discovered in Florida last week. The Secret Service saying in a statement that the item was discovered Thursday near Palm Beach International Airport. The stand was found during advanced security preparations before President Trump's arrival on Friday. Investigators are looking into several possibilities, including if the perch was an old hunting stand and not used anymore, or the possibility of it being a plane buff to take pictures of aircrafts, or if it was a possible threat. No one was found on the scene or nearby, and a connection to a person has not yet been made.
Well, today marks day 20 of the government shutdown, and starting up today, I should say, federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, will begin reducing operations.
Now, to talk more about this, we bring in Deputy Political Director Joe St. George. Good morning, Joe. Can you tell us what operations will be cut and are cases still being heard?
Yeah, a new week and yet the same old story, but we follow this. It seems like every day, there's a new development and a new impact of a prolonged government shutdown. First, a grim milestone I have to report this morning. We are now the third longest shutdown in American history. The longest being the one in 2018-2019 that lasted 35 days. The one in the 1990s lasted 21 days. So we're going to surpass that later this week. So we're in record territory already for the amount of time that the federal government has been shut down. As far as the impacts on the courts, up until this point, the federal judiciary had been relying on existing funds, court fines, court fees to keep things operational, normal-ish. Well, those funds ran out over the weekend, so furloughs are beginning today. Yes, that does include the U.S. Supreme Court. It also includes federal courts across the state of Texas. The U.S. Supreme Court, they're still going to hear cases, and they're still going to issue decisions. Justices, after all, are paid during a shutdown. However, there's going to be reduced operations. They're closing the building to tourists, for instance. Other residual impacts are going to be expected as well. Every court system is going to be a little different with what they can and cannot do. Yes, delays in some cases are possible. In fact, they're likely, although, again, the courts are going to try to do what they can. I know if you've been summoned to jury duty, you're wondering, okay, is this going to impact me? You're not quite that lucky. That's a different pot of money. Those funds haven't been exhausted. You're still encouraged and instructed to call your courts, your local court, your federal court near you to get instructions with that jury summons. So here we go, guys. More impacts coming, and I've got another date circled. This coming Friday, that's the next scheduled pay for federal workers. That is not coming as long as the shutdown continues.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for the information you have so far, Joe.
Appreciate you keeping up to date on it, sir. Looking forward to talking again soon.
Well, good Monday morning there, Coastal Bend. Taking a live look at Snoopy's Pier thanks to Matthews CCAC. 79 degrees, winds out of the southeast about 9 miles an hour, just a few degrees off from where we are in downtown Corpus Christi. A little bit of that low cloud cover as well, and that's because more moisture is on the way with that southeasterly flow in place right now. Over the past 10 hours, that cloud cover has made a dent just in our cool down at that. Not much of a cool down to talk about since last night. 80 degrees at 10 p.m., 78 by 2 a.m., sitting around 75 degrees or so here as we're heading in through the 6 a.m. hour. And looking in your neighborhood, a combination of those 70s and 80s, a couple 60s earlier, but now 70 degrees there in Beeville is the cool spot. 71 for Alice in Kingsville. Like we said, Corpus Christi coming in around 75 degrees right now, and 81 the hot spot in Port Aransas this morning, with visibilities not looking too bad, except there in Hebronville as well as Kingsville, a bit of reduced visibility down to 1.7 and 1.2 miles, so keep that in mind, as well as over towards Aldous, slightly reduced there. Whenever we're planning out our Monday, going to be pretty nice at that. 85 degrees by 11 a.m., 89 as we're heading through that lunch hour, topping out today around that 92 degree mark or so is what I'm forecasting there by about 4 p.m. And then we start that cool down with winds peaking 10 to 15 miles an hour. Of course, some of those gusts could be getting up to 20 miles an hour as well, so a little bit of a breezy afternoon. And forecasted highs going to be getting into those mid 80s, lower 90s, and even the mid 90s as you work your way from the coast to some of our inland communities towards that 96 degree mark, topping out for George West, Orange Grove, as well as Hebronville off there to the southwest. So going to be a pretty warm day at that, but forecast highs throughout the 10 days do have some good news on that. Through the next 7 days, going to be well above average, sitting in the upper 80s to lower 90s. But look at Tuesday by Wednesday to Thursday of next week as we're really getting near Halloween. That's where we see a pretty steep drop in some of those high temperatures. Right now, model guidance indicating those lower 80s going to be likely for some of the daytime highs. Of course, things still have time to change, so going to keep my eyes on that, as well as some of the tropics. Want to give you an update on. The National Hurricane Center is watching this area of low pressure, giving it about a 70% chance of development through the next 7 days. Right now, no cause of concern or cause for concern here in the coastal bend, but something to keep our eyes on because models still have a ways to go before they can pinpoint exactly where that one's going to go. Planning out the rest of our day, you can see where the winds are going to be picking up through about that lunchtime hour. Of course, entering the 90s by the early afternoon, so keep that in mind before the feels like temperatures get close to that 100-degree mark by that 4 p.m. hour. Throughout the next 7 days, going to be sitting in those lower 90s, I should say, for the next 2 days, then the upper 80s as we go through the rest of the week. Then we've got a good chance of rain by Friday into Saturday. Of course, 10 inches to go still to make up for 2025. Hopefully we see a good dent by there, and then overnight lows going to be holding their own in the 70s pretty much all week.
Coming up on Crew 6 Sunrise, it is a Monday, a week filled with brand new opportunities. Let's make sure that gas tank is filled up with some of the cheapest gas around town. All those prices when we come back. Welcome back, folks. Well, it is a Monday. Let's make sure that your gas tank is all filled up, ready for the week ahead with the cheapest prices. Let's take a look at the national average to start out, though, and you're going to be impressed, folks. It's under $3 right now, sitting at $2.98. That's actually a decrease of about 4 cents since last week. As for the Texas state average, we're sitting even better, $2.54 as the average, down by 7 cents since last week. That's being brought down by places like San Antonio with prices at around $2.20. Here in Corpus Christi, we're not doing as good. Still pretty good, though. $2.54 tied at the Murphy Express and the HEB, both in Flower Bluff. Murphy Express, right there next to that Walmart. So our Portland friends, your cheapest price is $2.62 over at the Circle K on North Shore Boulevard. And for our island friends, you're always going to be paying a little bit more. You know it. $2.69 at the Valero on Whitecap is the cheapest I was able to find. Watch out for some that are closer to that $2.90 range, though, especially in Port A. If you know, you know. As always, if you can find cheap prices, these guys might be worthwhile stopping and filling up. And I will have all of these prices online for you at christv.com.
Well, good Monday morning there. Taking a look at our USS Lexington cam brought to us by First Community Bank. You can see 6:23 a.m. on the board, the Harbor Bridge there in view. Traffic flowing nice and smooth along it right now, it looks like, and around most of the coastal bend as well. At least Corpus Christi looking nice and green this morning. Let's get a more in-depth look here at the Harbor Bridge. And yes, good and green to and from Portland this morning. Closer to Corpus Christi, Ocean Drive, no major slowdowns as of right now. Ennis Jocelyn looking good, as well as SPID, Saratoga, and the Crosstown Expressway. As we're heading through the 6 a.m. hour, not too bad right now as you're heading out the door. Closer to that Flower Bluff area, slight slowdown to report there on Waldron Road that you want to keep in mind, as well as the normal one near the Naval Air Station's gate. SPID there looking good, as well as Flower Bluff Drive, and a good look at some of those drive times for you. 21 minutes from downtown to the island, 8 minutes from Portland to downtown, and if you're heading from Cal Allen to downtown, sitting at about 15 minutes right now. So wherever you're going to, wherever you're coming from, good and green as we're heading out the door. But don't go anywhere, we've got more news and weather heading your way.
I'm Tony Jaramillo on the south side. This might look like an ordinary swim class, but I'll tell you why the swim instructor is making waves.
Now, weather on the 6s.
Well, 6:26 a.m. Good Monday morning there, Coastal Bend, taking a live look at Snoopy's Skycam, brought to us by Matthews CCAC, sitting in the upper 70s there at the Snoopy's, but 75 degrees here in Corpus Christi. Traffic flowing nice and smooth there. A little bit of cloud cover to look for there as well. That stifled some of our temperatures, but of course, as we're going through our day, want to look at how we stacked up yesterday first. 93 degrees for that daytime high, only a degree shy of that record we set back in 2004. 73 degrees for that morning low, a little bit above average, 8 degrees to be exact. For supposed to be 65 this time of year, but either way, well above that record 47 back in 1948. And as we all know, need a lot of rain to make up for 2025 right now. Current temperatures across the coastal bend sitting in the 70s, a couple 60, 69 degrees up in Beeville, also a couple 80s on the board closer to the coast, 81 degrees there in Port Aransas, as well as Ingleside this morning. Feels like temperatures not too bad as we're going through the 6 a.m. hour, but they're going to be on the the rise as we go through our day ahead. Current dew points sitting in those 70s, and with all the southeasterly flow, Beeville sitting at 67, likely to rise as well as we go through our Monday and Tuesday. The rest of us coming in a combination of those 70s heading through our Monday, but not too bad if you're wanting to take the pup for a walk, at least this morning. Today we've got Cool Whip on the couch with some of that spooky gear, ready to go out for a walk to one of our wonderful parks. Of course, temperature-wise, going to be shaping up in those 80s this morning, 80 by 9 a.m., 85 by 11 a.m., upper 80s entering the area by that lunchtime hour. Winds also picking up out of the southeast from about 5 miles an hour to that 10 to 15 mile an hour mark heading into the early afternoon. So not too bad of a day, at least into the morning, but the afternoon may be getting a little bit toasty out there, at least in terms of those feels like temperatures you could see with dew points in the 70s. Feels like temperature is going to have it in the upper 90s, potentially even topping out at feeling like 100 degrees out there. So heat risk wise, want to make sure you hydrate and take those precautions heading out the door this afternoon. Then we get that nice nightly cool down back into the 80s and 70s as we head towards tomorrow morning, and then do it all again. Rain chances wise though, with all that humidity, you think might be a good rain chance. Unfortunately today, not looking that likely for some of that rain, stray at best. As we go into tomorrow, maybe picks up just a little bit more on the way, but overall, chances are looking, or confidence I should say, rather low for right now. So currently the Doppler radar, yes, we would expect it to be nice and clear right now. That future tracker going to show you just a little bit of isolated activity trying to work in towards the Rockport, Seadrift, and northeastern areas of the coastal bend. But as we go through the rest of our Monday, going to be nice and dry for it. Tuesday, maybe a little bit more on the way. You could see as we go into the afternoon and then the evening, that's where maybe we could see a cold front trying to approach our doorstep. That could be the lift it needs just for a little bit of rain trying to push back into the area. But over the next 6 to 10 days, we're sitting at about below or between that likely wetter to about normal conditions for rain pushing into the coastal bend. So that's what I'm watching for. Of course, we know we need a lot of rain to make up for 2025, and the 7-day forecast showing you upper 80s, those lower 90s as well. And then there's that good chance of rain by Friday into Saturday with hopefully a good amount on the way as well, with overnight lows holding their own in the 70s.
I'm John Matteries. Have you ever booked a flight with a credit card, then left that credit card at home? I'll show you why that's a terrible idea, because you could be facing a very expensive flight back home.
Welcome back, folks. So along the Bay Area, First United Methodist Church is actually marking 3 decades of a monumental symbol of faith. Standing tall outside the church on South Shoreline, the 32-foot Body of Christ statue has welcomed worshipers and visitors since it was built in October of 1995 by international sculptor Kent Ahlberg. The idea for the statue came from Dorothy McCoy, a local teacher who dedicated the project to her late son and to all Christians in the city. The church's new pastor says the monument is more than just artwork, it's a message of hope and endurance.
It's a memorial of the God that has brought us through many storms, is a God that will also bring peace. This is our gift to the city on behalf of First United Methodist.
And the details of the statue are very intricate. It sits more than 15 feet high with more than 4,200 pounds of metal and marble. The entire statue weighs about 75,000 pounds.
I'm your neighborhood news reporter Jada Jenkins in Corpus Christi at the Trade Center. I spent the day talking with people who knew and loved a woman named Delia Bobby Guajardo. Many also shared their love for the little lady with a big heart online.
Delia Bobby Guajardo was a familiar face at the Corpus Christi Trade Center, known for her small stature and her big heart. I spoke with her sister and her best friend, who tells me she worked as a waitress at Gordita San Pancho's for more than 20 years. Since news of her passing, hundreds have flooded Facebook with likes, shares, and comments, remembering the little lady who made everyone feel like family.
A lot of people will be looking for her, all the time we're going to be looking for her, and we're going to miss her a lot.
It's going to be hard for me when I go back. We were always together. It'll be hard for me.
Loved ones say Delia was sweet, but also a little feisty. She never let a holiday go by without giving the other vendors gifts. And her smile was something people looked forward to seeing every weekend. Now, those who knew her say the Trade Center won't feel the same without her.
The people I talked to about Delia Guajardo tell me they'll miss her humor, her hugs, and how she made them feel. In Corpus Christi, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Jada Jenkins, KRIS 6 News.
Well, good Monday morning there, Coastal Bend. Taking a look at our USS Lexington cam brought to us by First Community Bank. 75 degrees, winds out of the southeast, 5 miles an hour. Looking at the harbor bridges there, traffic flowing nice and smooth. Even a little bit of cloud cover out there this morning that has stifled some of that nighttime cooling. Of course, our Sunday almost record-setting 93 degrees for that daytime high. 94 degrees was the record set back in 2004. Of course, the morning lows, though, well above the records. That record was 47, set back in 1948. Came in at 73 yesterday, so pretty warm, and like we know, lots of rain needed to make up for 2025 so far, coming up on 10.5 inches. Of course, the past 31 days I want to take a quick look at. You see mainly above average, only 1 or 2 days that were below average, but we've been very warm here in the Coastal Bend, or at least you could say in terms of that climatology, above average we have been, and hopefully we start to see that go below average going into the future. And the 10-day forecast does have some hope for you, at least some good news. You can see the next 7 days at least going to be above average, those upper 80s, potentially lower 90s. Then that steep decrease by Tuesday to Wednesday and Thursday of next week, getting closer to Halloween. Some hope on the horizon with those daytime highs pushing into the lower 80s. So hopefully we see some cooler temperatures working in as well as some rain. I'll go over all those rain chances in that full 7-day forecast coming up in just a bit.
Now, 20 minutes of non-stop news, sponsored by Ewald Kubota.
Hey, welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for joining us for our 20 minutes of nonstop news with the Hoffmans. I'm Brian Hoffman.
And I'm Michelle Hoffman. Of course, folks, we have plenty of neighborhood news for you this Monday morning. But first, we have to check in with meteorologist Stephen Jones to see how the traffic is flowing before you head out the door. Good morning, Stephen.
Morning.
Well, good morning, Brian and Michelle. It was a nice day yesterday, looking at a little bit lower humidity, but today it's back in the air just a little bit. As you step out the door, you can feel it, but traffic-wise, not looking too bad, you two. Taking a look at our SPID sky cam, you can see traffic flowing nice and smooth there along SPID, starting to pick up just a little bit as we're heading into the 6:40 a.m. time frame. Of course, around the rest of the Coastal Bend, also looking pretty good and green. Let's take an in-depth look out there at some of the roadways now. Whenever we're getting a good look at the Harbor Bridge to and from Portland this morning, as you're heading out the door, good and green both ways here into Corpus Christi. Ocean Drive, no major slowdowns as of right now. Ennis Jocelyn as well looking good. SPID, Saratoga, and Crosstown Expressway, all three coming in good and green as we're heading through the 6:40 a.m. time frame. Closer to the island over by Flower Bluff, Waldron Road does have a minor slowdown to keep in mind, as well as the normal one towards the Naval Air Station. Flower Bluff Drive, though, looking good and green as we're heading out the door this morning. Some of those drive times for you sitting at 22 minutes from downtown to the island. Portland to downtown, 8 minutes. And if you're from Cal Island to downtown, sitting around 15 minutes right now. Wherever you're coming from, wherever you're going to, sitting good and green heading out the door this morning. But don't go anywhere. More news and weather heading your way.
Stephen, appreciate you, sir. So early voting for the November 4th election starts up today, and 17 proposed amendments to Texas Constitution are on the ballot. There's also some local races you might need to know about. Here's a quick look at Nueces County. Port Aransas residents are going to vote on a civic and community center that's going to be funded by an increase to the hotel occupancy tax. Aransas Pass ISD residents are also going to vote on a proposed tax increase. A mayoral and city council races on the ballot for Robstown. Also on Nueces County ballot, 3 separate proposals that would annex new areas to emergency service districts 1, 3, and 4. You can stop on by Nueces County Courthouse to vote. Early voting is going to be open today through the 29th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Closed on October 26th and open on October 30th and 31st from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Early voting ends Friday, October 31st. Election day is always Tuesday, November 4th.
Teachers in Kingsville say classroom chaos is driving some to quit. Neighborhood news reporter Tyrese Boone shares their frustrations and the district's response.
Teachers at Gillette Middle School say classrooms are becoming increasingly difficult to manage, and educators like Roberta Bliss say they've reached their breaking point.
I've had kids climbing on tables, falling out of their seat, making noises, tapping, the typical. Mostly it's the talking, the nonstop talking.
Bliss, who's taught for nearly 18 years, says the stress and constant disruptions have become too much.
We're not seeing the support of parents. Parents, we need their support. We need everyone to do their part. It's the whole community.
Bliss submitted her resignation to Kingsville ISD this week, citing the difficult classroom environment. Other teachers say they've requested transfers or are considering leaving as well.
I can't go back to the classroom. It's too traumatic for me. Just the thought of it, my chest tightens.
Some teachers I spoke with anonymously say they want the district to provide more resources, enforce clear classroom rules, and support both staff and students academically.
But it seems like the lack of consequence and accountability is what seems to allow them to get away with these things, and it's just becoming overbearing.
A recent Texas Education Agency task force report shows around 60 to 77% of teachers statewide feel burned out, citing student behavior, learning gaps, and lack of support as major factors. I reached out to KISD Superintendent Dr. Luz Martinez Thursday and Friday morning for an interview. In a statement, she said only 2 teachers have resigned since she assumed the role. Staffing remains stable, and student safety and learning are top priorities. She also encourages parents to stay engaged and partner with teachers. Teachers here say they love their students, but something has to change. They tell me they hope speaking out starts a real conversation. In Kingsville, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Tyrese Boone, Chris 6 News.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Tyrese. Hey, folks, don't go anywhere. We have plenty of neighborhood news to get to this morning.
That's right. From an old courthouse getting new life in Live Oak County to a swimming teacher who doesn't let her age stop her. We have you covered in your neighborhood check-in.
In 1919, prohibition just became law, and that's the same year the Live Oak County Courthouse was built. Now, almost a century later, it's finally getting renovated. I'm Melissa Trevino, your neighborhood news reporter in George West, and I speak with the county judge on how this TLC won't cost you a dime. Back in the 1800s, when the county seat was moved from Oakville to George West, the courthouse was built using native stone and lumber. The land, according to the historical marker database, came from the town's founder, George West. The building has gone through a lot of changes over the years, both man-made and from Mother Nature. James Liska has seen renovations of the courthouse in the last few months. Judge Liska says money to cover the renovations, which started 3 years ago, came from the county's construction fund. The judge says the funds generated from money put aside by county leaders should help pay for the project, so they don't put a financial burden on taxpayers.
I'm Tony Jaramillo, your neighborhood news reporter on the south side. Water is all around us here in the Coastal Bend. Some get in to relax and others get into a pool to exercise. I spent the day with a swim instructor here at the YWCA who's standing out for the waves she's made. Inside the YWCA on Corpus Christi south side, you'll find this giant pool filled with water and people during the week. You'll also find Socorro Moreno instructing here 5 days a week. She's been teaching swim exercises for the last 15 years.
Came in for a class, and I was going to do the exercises, but the instructor didn't show up.
Socorro began doing her own routine, which made waves.
And some of the other ladies started following me, and it happened that the supervisor was in the water.
The impressive work, she says, led to an offer to become an instructor. But something that separates Socorro from the norm?
Yeah, in November 25th, I'll be 90 years old.
Socorro's impact has had a ripple effect far past just being an instructor. You can go to ChrisTV.com to find Socorro Moreno's teaching schedule. On the south side, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Tony Jaramillo, Chris 6 News.
Well, 6:46 a.m. Looking at our USS Lexington cam, brought to us by First Community Bank. 75 degrees, winds out of the southeast about 5 miles an hour, and not too bad there on the Harbor Bridge. Just a little bit of low cloud cover to look out for. Current temperatures sitting in a combination of those 70s, 80s, even a couple 60s on the board. 69 degrees there in Beeville this morning. 75 here in town, of course. 81 for Port Aransas, 80 there in Ingleside, and then 71 for Alice and Kingsville, as well as George West as we're going through the 6 a.m. hour. Closer to 7 a.m. now. Planning out our Monday for us by 9 a.m. Going to hit 80 degrees, 11 a.m. About that 86 degree mark. Topping out this afternoon. Going to go to 90 degrees by 3 p.m. and then about 91 or 2 degrees by 4 p.m. So something to look out for with that. Looking at humidity, going to be pretty warm today with those winds also peaking this afternoon. 10 to 15 miles an hour out of the southeast, indicating the return of that moisture, of course, with those dew points sitting in the 70s. For forecasted highs, mid 80s along the coast, 92 here in Corpus Christi. Christi, mid-90s as you work your way inland, sitting at 96 degrees about for George West, Orange Grove, as well as Hebronville there off towards the southwest as we go towards those daytime highs. So going to be very warm, at least very much above average going through our Monday. And in terms of heat risk, going to be sitting from minor to moderate around Corpus Christi and portions of the coastal bend for our Monday. For Tuesday, a slight expansion of some of that moderate heat risk around the area, so want to keep that in mind as well. Drink the water, practice the heat safety as we're going outside. Make sure to be in shade as much as you can. Into our Wednesday, looks to calm down just a little bit with more of the minor heat risk. Still some moderate heat risk going to be sitting around Corpus Christi and the coast with more of that moisture and humidity in place, so something to watch for. But some hope on the horizon. You can see in our next 10 days, above average for most of it. But by the time we're going into next week, closer to Halloween, a pretty steep decrease in the model guidance right now, indicating maybe those lower 80s on the horizon for some of those daytime highs, hopefully by the time we're heading to Halloween, and hopefully closer to normal lows as well. Something to update you on the tropics as well. The National Hurricane Center watching this area of low pressure, giving it about a 70% chance of formation. Of course, still well out there and well away right now, so models pretty unsure of exactly where it's going to go, but something to watch for now. No cause for concern right now here in the coastal bend either, just something to watch for through the coming days. And through the next 7 days, going to see over daytime highs in the upper 80s, the lower 90s as well. Forecast rain there by Friday into Saturday. Overnight lows going to be holding their own in those lower 70s, and hopefully we see that rain make a good dent in some of the deficit that we're seeing for rain this year.
All right, thank you so much, Stephen. Appreciate it. So in rare circumstances, traveling with the wrong credit card could leave you stuck overseas or paying for a new flight home. Very expensive one. Scripps News Group consumer reporter John Matarese shares one man's story, so you don't waste your money.
Have you ever booked a flight with a credit card only to leave that credit card at home? Well, you only need to make that mistake once to learn why it's so important to bring that card along if you're taking certain flights.
Do you always pack the credit card you used to book your flight?
Yes. Always bring it.
One time, Stacy Davis left it at home.
Oh, it did make it a little difficult.
Well, this man says you should always bring the card that booked the flight. He's Herb Weisbaum, a consumer expert and retired correspondent from the Today Show. Even he was stumped, though, returning home from a trip with his wife to England when they were denied boarding their return flight home.
It said the only way we could identify ourselves and start the process was with the credit card that we had purchased the ticket with.
A Delta agent said he needed to show that specific card.
I don't travel with all my credit cards. I leave some of them home.
You had a reservation and you had a passport and they wouldn't let you on the plane?
We had a passport, we had a driver's license, we had a confirmation code.
Weisbaum says he was given 3 options. Buy a $3,000 one-way ticket, stay in London, or send a photo of the missing card. He chose option 3.
I called my good neighbor, Sam. He broke into my house at 3 o'clock in the morning, legally.
We reached out to Delta for clarification on its credit card policy. A spokesperson tells us most customers in most instances will not have to show the card used to purchase their booking at the airport. The airline provides this guidance to customers online. To safeguard against credit debit card fraud, the purchaser may have to show us the credit debit card along with a valid photo ID, adding it can be based on billing address or the country of travel. This appears to be more common with international flights. Still, it might be worth carrying the card you bought the ticket with.
But if that's the policy, tell me about it. Make it very, very clear.
So you don't waste your money. John Matarese, Scripps News Group.
Now, 6 things to know before you go.
Today marks day 20 of the federal government shutdown with no end in sight. Senators headed home for a long weekend Thursday afternoon after a 10th failed vote. Democrats say they are unwilling to pass even a short-term funding bill without extensions for the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Senate Republicans are reportedly considering a vote as soon as this week to pay federal workers affected by the shutdown. Until now, the GOP has refused to vote on worker pay without Democrats agreeing to open up the government.
Republicans are also weighing a separate bill to ensure military members get paid. The Democrats also have their own bill to do so.
President Donald Trump is hosting Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese at the White House today. The two have a number of issues to discuss, from security efforts in the Indo-Pacific to trade. A key focus for today's discussion will be a trilateral security partnership between the U.S., the U.K., and Australia. It's currently undergoing Pentagon review. Another potential topic up for discussion is the mining of rare earth minerals in the wake of China's decision to place new restrictions on the export of these materials.
Vice President J.D. Vance is expected to lead a U.S. delegation to Israel this week. The trip comes as the Trump administration moves to implement Phase 2 of its ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. The truce that ended months of fighting is in its second week, but already tensions are bubbling up. Israel launched a wave of strikes on Gaza and blamed Hamas of violating the ceasefire after 2 Israeli soldiers were killed Sunday.
President Donald Trump has signed a proclamation paving the way for higher tariffs on imported trucks, buses, and their parts. Beginning November 1st, the tariff rate for medium and heavy-duty trucks and truck parts will jump to 25%, while buses, including school and public transit models, will face a 10% rate. The administration says exemptions will apply to vehicles and parts from Mexico and Canada that meet the terms of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which Trump brokered during his first term.
The Corpus Christi City Council will be looking at a resolution for park improvements this week, specifically Commodore Park. The resolution will be to award a construction contract to a company out of Cairo, Texas. They will oversee Phase 1 of the project. It includes improvements to a covered basketball court pavilion, tennis courts, pickleball courts, a fenced playground area, and new lighting. The total cost is more than $3.4 million. It'll be funded from a 2024 bond.
Starting today, parts of Flower Bluff Drive will be closed for construction. Crews will be installing underground fiber between Purdue Road and Peaceful Lane. Residents are advised to exercise caution when driving through these areas, and construction should last until November 9th.
So the Grammy-winning rock band Stone Temple Pilots with special guests the Toadies are coming to the Concrete Street Amphitheater on Thursday, November 6th, and Chris 6 News has your back. We're giving you the chance to win a pair of tickets. To enter to win, go to christv.com/contest and fill out that form with your information. Good luck, everyone.
Here's a look at what's trending now. Panera Bread is testing out some new premium specialty beverage options in select cities and locations. The drinks are called Frescas and Energy Refreshers, and they come with an infusion of real fruit with 2 flavor options. The Frescas are caffeine-free, while the Energy Refreshers contain caffeine, and the 12-week test run is currently underway at 65 locations through January 6th.
Sounds tasty.
I don't know. We do have one in Corpus, right? A Panera? No?
See, I was wondering that too. I'm not huge on Panera Bread, so it wasn't one of the ones I was
I'm going to look it up real quick.
Is there one there? Like, I needed to know, I was looking at a few of them. I was pretty happy to see Five Guys was here too, They got some pretty solid burgers in my mind. What's your favorite burger spot? I got to ask real quick.
You know what? I had one of the best burgers just the other night at a function over at Snoopy's. And oh my goodness, Snoopy's, you guys are on point on burgers. You think like seafood over there. I don't really eat too much seafood.
Yeah.
The burger over there, oh man, it was on point.
I don't see a Panera Bread on here. Why did I think we had one? I don't know.
Maybe something that could hopefully come. We'll see.
Exactly.
We'll try to work for it. But
I know a lot of people are hopeful that rain will come too.
I know, absolutely. I'm hoping for it too. We definitely need it. We've got that moderate drought around right now, and not raining right now there. Taking a look at our USS Lexington cam. A beautiful view though this Monday morning, thanks to First Community Bank. 74 degrees. Winds pretty calm out and about right now. But as we go through our Monday, definitely going to be warming up, similar to what we saw yesterday. Yesterday got 93 degrees, close to that record, almost record setting, but not quite. 94 was that record set back in 2004, not even close on the morning lows though, coming in at 73 degrees. That record 47 set back in 1948, and yes, we need a lot of rain to make up for this point in 2025, at least where we should be in terms of the rainfall. Current temperatures though, sitting in a combination of 70s, 80s along the coast, even 69 degrees there in Beeville, the cool spot this morning, nice and a little bit cool there. 81 in Port Aransas, the high hot spots. So 12 degrees right now have spread across the coastal bend. Looking like a good morning to take the pup for a walk. Today's pup of the day going to be Cool Whip here on the couch with some of their spooky gear ready to go and take a walk. Of course, those temperatures this morning going to shape up into the 80s by 9 a.m., 83 by 10 a.m., 88 as we're heading towards that lunchtime hour. Winds also slowly picking up out of the southeast, about 5 to 10 miles an hour to 10 to 15 as we're going through the afternoon. But the afternoon going to be a little toasty at that, at least in terms of feels like temperatures getting up to about that 99-degree mark by 2 to 4 p.m. So make sure to practice those heat precautions. But there is some hope on the horizon in terms of daytime highs. Throughout the next 7 days, definitely going to be above average, those upper 80s to lower 90s. But then look at the steep decrease as we get pretty close to Halloween. That's where we could see the lower 80s making their return back into the coastal bend, and hopefully some more rain on the way as well. But right now, not too much on the forecast. Just by this weekend, maybe a little bit on the way. You see the 7-day forecast here with those lower 90s, the upper 80s on the board. Friday into Saturday, that good amount of rain on the way. Hopefully in terms of rainfall totals though, 10.5 inches shy of where we should be. Hopefully we get some good totals to make a dent in that as well as the drought, I'm just looking for that rain in the forecast.
Yeah, I think we all are, Stephen. Thank you so much for that update. And folks, thank you so much for joining us this Monday morning on Chris 6 Sunrise. We hope you guys have a great start to your week, and we hope to see you tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am. Take it easy, folks.